while humanizing the laws on the subject of punishment, we have to consider or balance the plight of both sides, of the accused and as well as the victim. I have a very strong kind of notion in my mind that before we talk of, liberalizing the punishment laws, getting changes into it, I'll just put 3 points on. My first point is, I think we need to induct a kind of self-discipline in we the people of India, the larger part of the society. Unless and until we don't discipline the society, forget about about the liberal criminal law punishments or deterrent punishments. You just take the example of Nirbhay. It was in 2012 that the offense was committed. And number of the changes were introduced in in IPC, making it punishable with life imprisonment. There was a lot of halla gulla over this thing. Now time has come to set up the fast track courts. It should be curbed. But honestly speaking, do you think that the percentage of the rape incidents have come down or they have increased? I am talking of the mindset. So point number one is, let's have a scheme, a project where we can think of percolating down the sense of self-discipline in the public at large. Number one. Number two, now administration of criminal justice, the punishment and all these things, they come subsequently. Let's talk about the administration of the criminal justice. Now, friend, with due respect, his lordship is there, I'm sure I am subject to correction, but what I feel is that there are a number of the gray areas in the administration of the criminal justice. What I find is there's a total lack of coordination between the police and the prosecution. Then comes the role of the judiciary, and this has resulted into a kind of unrest among the public in general, losing faith in the system as such. Now, in such scenario, whether the time has come for us to introspect whether we should go for the amendments in punishment laws or whether we should take a broader perspective of the subject and decide whether first we should take step one, self-disciplining, then strengthening the various levels of the criminal administration system, and then talk of this punishment liberal approach in the punishments. Now, I have been given a very specific topic of categorization of the cases under which we can go for this liberal kind of punishments. I think, summons cases, summary trial cases, all the offenses which come under this category. And of course, plea bargaining, there are specific chapters in CRPC which deal with these subjects. Those kind of offenses first should be brought under the purview of this substitute kind of imprisonment, and then we can think of bringing the other offenses under its category.
As a balance, the members of the judicial services think that the rights of accused are very important. However, the law enforcers will have less of sympathies towards a lawbreaker or a guilty. So our sympathies are hugely tilted towards the victim, and therefore victim compensation, victim centricity is what all the law enforcers desire. So this is the general thing that I'll go, and therefore I am broadly against any leniency towards the guilty, and leniency can be in the format. I mean, we need not punish with an imprisonment a person who has had an accident and is booked under 279, 337, 338. That is not the idea. The judiciary or the lawmakers or the opinion makers, influencers, they cannot wish away the fact that the entire society is wanting quick justice, and with a guilty punished for life or with a death penalty by a trial court, goes to first level of appeal, second level of appeal, then he goes for presidential pardon, then he goes for some XYZs, and this takes 6 years. The public doesn't have the patience, and if it doesn't have the patience, it doesn't have the patience. We can't generally pass a remark that the public needs to be patient and there has to be faith in rule of law. There are certain things where the public's view has to be taken into consideration by the lawmaker. So what I feel is, retributive model of punishment, victim does not get any relief. So I feel that if you are imprisoning a fellow who has cheated people of 500 crores, I'm looking for getting my money back. I'm not interested in him getting into imprisonment or not. The law should get me my money back, which I have lost. So broadly, I was told police is what police does. Similarly, law is what law does. So if the law doesn't provide me my money back, which I have lost, for me, law has failed. So he gets so if there is a retributive model of punishment, the victim gets a false sense of victory, but he doesn't get any help for his life. A person is lost his wife, his children, his parents, don't get anything. So why shouldn't we look at the fact that the guilty must provide for the expenses of the parents, old parents, or the education of the children? So the format has to be changed. Maybe they are also not interested in the imprisonment. So it has to contribute towards the betterment of the victim.
And the three issues which have been highlighted by the organizer, one is the community service, another is the restitution, and third is the probation. So like community service, when we say the Andhra Pradesh Community Service Act is there, 2013. What I would like to say, this act says that only the offences which are punishable not more than 1 year, with fine or without fine. So that means the meager kind of offences, the petty offences like pickpocketers and several kind of petty offences. If you will see the jail, I have been working with the criminal justice system and with the police particularly and prisons since last 3 decades. And I have visited several prisons and seen that you see suffering of some of the prisoners, that you see those who are really, poor background and they may have committed crime, but very petty crime, which can be considered for the community service. So community service is like all these three issues are based on the restorative justice process, because we have to restore back to the society. As Mr. Bajaj was saying, restoration has to be done. I'm coming to that, like economic offences. Economic offences we will see and organized crime. Now the restitution is a fit case for that. That if in such kind of crime, when the people are being convicted, first thing the fast track should be done to punish these offenders, and these people should be, those who are victims should be restituted, because there is a difference between restitution and compensation. If you'll see the UN declaration on basic principles for victims of crime and abuse of power, 1985, it says 4 components. One, access to justice and fair treatment for these both kind of victims, restitution, compensation, and the assistance of different kinds. So now restitution means the perpetrator of the crime would compensate, would pay the money or whatever has to be restored through his own resources. So the state will not pay for that. Compensation comes for that, the state, and 357 and other schemes are there. Third provision could be, like we all know, the Protection of Human Rights Act is here, and Honorable Saeed sir is also here. Section 30 of this act says that the human rights court should be constituted. Many states have constituted the human rights courts, but these courts are not very much functional because of 2 problems. One, that the nature of offences which can be tried by these courts, here is a confusion. And second is, there is no procedural code. How to process, how to go about this?
First thing is, it is not just the question of liberalizing sentences. It is a question that, what I can gather from the discussion of the various speakers, that there is a question of looking into or revisiting the philosophy of the entire criminal justice process. When we talk about activist rights or over rights of accused or victim-centric criminal justice system, participation of victims, courts process, liberalization, so we are actually talking about a larger debate of the philosophy of the criminal justice system. I'm speaking here purely from a theoretical background. And why I'm raising this concern? So whenever we take a discussion of this nature, we cannot be oblivious of this kind of larger question. Second, I want to say that so before we consider the questions of liberalizing punishment and all, what are the existing aspects?
The subject is law, the punishments, whether in the form of imprisonment, affect the society or do they really help the society? Punishments in serious offenses must not be compromised. But punishments in minor offenses, particularly technical offenses, I say, accident case, is that way technical offense. While driving, some error is committed. Now, even the judge is unable to appreciate it, whether that error was out of a criminal negligence or was a judgmental error. Judge decides that case in a way as he thinks about it. The approach of us should be reformative, of course. And the question then would be how the difference in perceptions of judges can be reduced. We are here to discuss on this issue more. See, perception differs from man to man. We cannot blame anybody. Therefore, I would suggest that this discussion may lead into a proposed amendment in some procedural laws so that punishments in minor offences, as I have said in accident cases, sometimes public servants commit error, which appear to be in the form of a misconduct, and he is then taken to a case under the Prevention of Corruption Act, Section 13. Error that way is not very intentional also, but he is punished. With that punishment sometimes ruins his own life as well as his family's life also. So can we bring some uniformity? I know that deterrent theory on one side, reformative theory on other side. Everybody has importance. As Mr. Chakravarti said, even Malimat Committee's report also is not that way in favor of reformative theory. Therefore, the balance is always drawn by the judicial system, whether to punish by way of fine or compensation or to punish by way of imprisonment.
Deterrence, retribution, rehabilitation, restoration are the different type of criminal punishments. Among these, rehabilitation and restoration are typical punishments of democratic principle, which is known as restorative justice. The developed democratic nation should move forward with the restorative justice system. For that, we need a national policy for proper rehabilitation and restoration of convicts. The jail system should be modified and prison reforms are required. The participation of social action group for this restorative justice should be mandated. Even the preamble of Indian Constitution starts as "We the people of India," which means government is the father and mother of every citizen of this nation. This is also inclusive of the victims as well as the convicts. So it is the responsibility of the state to restore them back to normal life, even the victims as well as the convicts. It is true the IPC emerged in 1860. Yes, we need amendment in section 53 as mentioned here, and we need to have non-custodial punishment. The Constitution of India enacted in 1950. If you read part 3 of Indian Constitution, among many other fundamental rights, only for 2 violations the Constitution directly requiring punishment. Article 70 and Article 23. Traffic in human beings and forced labor. Only these 2 articles, the Constitution directly says that any contravention to this need to be punished, whereas other articles are silent about punishment. So my point is, even though the rehabilitation and restoration are the democratic typical punishments, but the traffic in human beings and forced labor, our Constitution required punishment in the form to prevent future crime by physically moving criminals away. Because in this type of crime, the victims are very vulnerable. So we should be careful when suggest for restorative justice for convicts, and the vulnerable people should not be victimized again and again in the gesture of alternative punishment or restorative justice or anything.
We cannot forget that victim and criminal both are members of our society. We have produced them. We cannot forget this issue that criminal is also produced by us and victim is also one of the members of our society. Criminal is not foreigner to us. Criminal is not foreigner to this world. Is member of this world, member of a citizen of our country, member of our society. Why he became criminal? Why he started doing crime and what type of crime he has committed? These are all the issues to be considered before you see inflicting any punishment on the criminal. And therefore, the punishment issue, what today's subject is actually we had gone beyond the scope of the subject, victimology and all these things. Our issue was very limited whether we can introduce some new forms of punishment in the law. And new forms of punishment in the law, when we talk about, not necessarily we are talking about the serious offenses of bank fraud and NDPS and terrorism. So we are talking about the offenses other than that. We cannot even conceive that a person who is trafficking drugs, who is human trafficking, indulged in human trafficking, we cannot even conceive that such a person after conviction can be released in the society for reformation. And even if you apply some electronic device upon him to track him, it will be difficult because his mindset is different. So when you start any reformation, when you introduce any reformative punishment, I'm not against it, but the reformative punishment immediately after conviction. Whether it is proper or not, that is to be seen. We have existing laws like Probation of Offenders Act, where you see if we utilize Probation of Offenders Act properly, the scope of today's discussion, according to me, will be reduced to more than 50%. Probation of Offenders Act is not utilized properly, and other power discretion given to the magistrate is not properly exercised. That is the problem. If the magistrate and judges exercise their discretion properly, because the punishment, he can be sentenced to imprisonment of for up to 5 years. Now, in this case, whether it should be 5 years or 5 days, that is to be decided by the magistrate or judge. If that discretion is properly exercised and used, then to my mind, the punishment, you see, introducing newer punishment, scope of that will be reduced to a large extent. But still, there is a scope for introducing newer punishments because victim is left. Reformative punishment even you can give to a thief for the first time. Reformative sentences are necessary. You can have community service. You can leave the offender to stay in his home and earn livelihood by doing something from his home and keep monitoring on him.
We can amend section 53, we can have new forms of punishment, but the scope should be restricted only to the appropriate kind of cases. Corruption cases is a complete no. If I can take a liberty, offenses against women may also be not, or offenses against children may also not be a suitable category of cases where these measures can be utilized. Economic offenses, yes, we can consider economic offenses because therein the intention is to restore the property. Therein the justice will not be met by merely sending a person to the imprisonment. Then, as Professor Tiwari said, petty offenses, yes, definitely. Mr. Saeed said compoundable offenses, offenses covered under plea bargaining. That's a very broad spectrum because plea bargaining punishable less than 7 years of imprisonment, to which I also agree that yes, we can have, unless the offender has a propensity to commit the offense, unless he's a violent offender.
Criminal
And
case.
that was the point which was made by Mr. Bajaj as well. The entire basis, as I see, as Professor Chakrabarti also said, why we emphasize is because there is no certainty about truth. The aim of criminal justice system is not to identify truth. It's to identify what is beyond reasonable doubt or balance of probabilities. So it's based on the evidence. Now, whatever is before the judge is the evidence. It may be truth, it may not be truth. And that's why we say that the aim of criminal justice system, at least theoretically across the jurisdictions, this is the trend that, you know, we may not reach the truth, but yes, it is the legal truth. As far as law is concerned, this is the truth. What is actual truth? And many of you very rightly pointed out that be it victim, be it offender, they are part of society. Even if an accused, he emerges from the society, and it will take us to different criminological understanding. Why do people commit crime? Ultimately, it is important to recognize them as citizens. And only then we can look forward to some meaningful reform. Mr. David said that human trafficking offenses are complete no, because there is a likelihood that they may harm the victim if they are let free in the society. So these are some of the observations we need to keep in mind. And Mr. Sable also made pertinent observations. Probably what he meant was strict liability offenses. Probably with respect to strict liability offenses also, there is no requirement of mens rea. And Mr. Saeed initially asked in the beginning that where is the burden of proof? Prosecution has to prove. As far as strict liability offenses concerned, prosecution has to prove the act, that a mere act has been committed. But why that act has been committed? What is the intention? Probably those may be the kind of cases which may be explored, but I don't think that will be a subject matter of today's discussion because strict liability offenses falls under a different regime. So yes, these are some of the observations we can work around.
I thank our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Dilip Bouquet sir, and respected Registrar, Professor Dr. Anilji Variat sir, for always supporting and encouraging the faculty of MNLU to broaden their horizon in the field of law and experiment by selecting innovative topics for the discussion. We are grateful to the team of International Justice Mission for collaborating with us in introducing the panel discussion on criminal law reforms, Western Region consultation.